So, in the music section, as I said before, we have some pretty big follow-ups to talk about. We also have new music from the Callous Dowboys to get out of the way in the new music section, as well as Christmas is coming around the corner. So, everyone's favorite Christmas metal show just announced tour dates. We'll talk about that. Welcome, nerds, to the music news for the week. This is a chunk taken out of the much larger full-length show over on the main channel, youtube.com/generallynerdy. Here in the music section, we like to talk about recent releases, upcoming releases, as well as tour dates being announced, festivals being announced, just regular music-associated news and the whatnot. This week in news, this stuff happened. All right, so follow-ups and corrections. No corrections, but we do have some pretty big follow-ups to talk about. The first one kind of, in a way, might not even be a follow-up, but it's kind of, they're being, I'm not going to bury the lead. Five Finger Death Punch just played a show in LA at the, what was the name of the arena? I didn't write it down. It was in LA though. Yeah, whatever. It was their Metallica date. And Ivan Moody was not on stage. There was a big post on the Five Finger Death Punch social medias, and they said that Ivan had come down with a quote-unquote terrible flu and was not going to be singing for that for the show that night. So instead of Ivan, very interesting here, instead of Ivan, they had Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage, they had Phil Labonte from All That Remains, and then they also had, what was the other guy's name? AJ Channer from Fire from the Gods. Never heard of Fire from the Gods. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but that's pretty freaking epic. Those of you watching instead of just listening, you should be able to see some of the footage from that night. That is a hell of a lineup for vocalists to take the place of Ivan. I mean, honestly, from the two that I know, either of those dudes could have done that no problem, but it was probably came down to a matter of memorization, and also if you're going to have somebody fill in, you might as well have as much fun with that situation as possible, and Phil and Howard are long friends, and so I would imagine the AJ kid is also part of their circle of people. But yeah, just really interesting situation there. The reason I put this in follow-ups is because I'm pretty sure this probably has something to do with the issues they've been having in the European leg, where they were supposed to open for a couple of dates on the Metallica tour out there, and they had to pull out because of illness reasons. Specifically, it was Ivan's appendix. He had appendicitis, so they had to pull out of 2 shows because of that. Or it might have even been 3. I don't remember. We covered it, though. And so, I don't know. This just seems... Ivan has said previously that this is like the peak of the mountain for a band for his band specifically. So it doesn't make sense that this would be like, I don't know, cold feet, something. But yeah, Ivan Moody is sitting out. That's what we got. So the other big follow-up we have, and this one is legitimately huge and is legitimately a follow-up. We have Rammstein in the news. Follow-up on the Till Lindemann situation. The country of Germany has officially dropped their investigation on Till Lindemann for the accusations that were flung at him from, I believe it was less than 5 accusers. The reason being, and this part I really, when we first talked about this, I did not know this bit. I knew it had been covered in the YouTube space, and I knew a lot of the social media influencer types that were into this side of the music industry were talking about it, but I didn't realize just to what degree that was going. And this is the reason why this has been dismissed, is because the accusations were not levied against Till until a YouTuber, and I didn't write her name down because that would be giving her a lot more power than I want to, a YouTuber started investigating, quote unquote, some social media posts from a singular girl, and then a couple more girls once she started the investigation, and it was her piecing together puzzle pieces that didn't necessarily exist that then prompted the quote-unquote victims to levy their accusations against Till. the German courts said that is very problematic with the accusations. That is highly suspect and therefore not worthy of an investigation. And kudos to them, because the evidence needs to be there in order for something to happen. And when the evidence isn't there, it's just being made up in somebody's head. Connections are being made for no valid reason. Then you have to call a spade and move on with your life. So very awesome there. That's all we're going to talk about that, because we don't really get into that kind of stuff here on the channel, but it's pretty huge, so we kind of had to. That's all we have for follow-ups and corrections, though. Let's get into new music, shall we? This week in new music, first up we have Asking Alexandria, new song, Let Go. I really want to like these guys. I do like their older material. I do like their stuff that is much more metalcore and a lot less active rock. This is leaning even harder into their active rock sound, and it just really does nothing for me. And it's kind of disappointing, again, considering where they come from in the sound. I'm not ripping them for evolving. They've just evolved out of a genre of music that I really like to a genre of music that I really don't like, but a lot of other people do, so I kind of, to each their own. So the new Asking Alexandria track, Let Go rather, I'm gonna say skip it if you're not already a huge fan. If you are, or if you like stuff like Doe Tree, you'll probably dig this new Asking Alexandria, just not for me. Next up is Spirit Box's new track, Jaded. Comes from the Fear of Fear EP that is set for release November 3rd. I think Spirit Box has struck a very interesting situation with the way they release music. They've kind of come halfway between releasing whole albums and the singles plan that a lot of pop artists have adapted. And I think it's really working for them. I really dig it. As far as the music and the video go, this is solid, light metalcore, I guess you could call it. Heavy active rock. I don't know where the subgenre would be for these guys. They are themselves. As far as production of the video goes, that had to have been a hell of a video to shoot, because all mirrors. If you are unfamiliar with Spirit Box, this is a great place to start. I definitely recommend this. I'm definitely not going to spend a whole lot of money on it, but I will stream it. I'm not going to click next when it comes up on my suggested playlist. So yeah, check it out. Then we have Carnifex releasing a new single called Death's Forgotten Children. This one features Tom Barber from the Chelsea Grin on guest vocals. This comes from their next album, I'm not going to say this right, Necromantium, out October 6th of this year. If you are curious as to what solid deathcore is, this is a very good example of that. Carnifex really always comes through. The only thing I think I would change about this, we're going to talk about this a little bit more with one of the other deathcore bands we're talking about this week, but the thing I would change about this is the rock bass syndrome, man. The rock bass syndrome is strong with these ones. That's kind of a genre pitfall, not anything to hold against Carnifex. This is a solid track overall. If you like the heavy, check out the new Carnifex, Death's Forgotten Children. Then we're talking about Oni's new track, Aura. We did I believe we've done a proper reaction video to these guys before. Their last single featured not just Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, but also Iggy Pop from Iggy Pop. This track, however, features Howard freaking Jones on guest vocals and is just another solid example of the kind of sound these guys are going for. If I had to pin it into a subgenre, I would say it's metalcore for sure, but it's definitely got a bit of a softer side. There's a lot more melodic vocals here than you would find in like most standard bearing metalcore records, and they do it well, so I'm definitely here for it. If you like the softer side of the metalcore, check out Aura from Oni. Then we have Job for a Cowboy giving us a new single, The Agony Seeping Storm. Some of the OG in the deathcore subgenre, these guys really know how it is done. And this is where we're talking about rock bass syndrome once again, because these guys definitely don't suffer from it at all. The bass player is shredding and you can hear it very clearly. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. I think more bands in the subgenre of deathcore should take a note out of the Job for a Cowboy playbook, because these guys really know how to round out this sound and keep it super, super sonically interesting. So absolutely, if you want to see some of the best deathcore, check out the new Job for a Cowboy song, The Agony Seeping Storm. Then, as I was finishing my research, another track got released from Dying Wish. This one is called Last in the Fall. To my ears, Dying Wish is kind of the new Walls of Jericho, which is a huge compliment, because Walls of Jericho is probably one of the best metalcore acts that came out of the early to mid-aughts. So absolutely, absolutely dig this. The difference here, though, is instead of Candace just going balls out all the time, the vocalist for Dying Wish, I can't remember her name, just knows how to do everything. She can do the harmonies as well as the balls out crazy screamy stuff, and this is just quality metalcore, and there's nothing else I can say about it. So absolutely go check out Dying Wish's new track, Lost in the Fall. Then one of my favorite bands from the last decade or so, Callous Cowboys, have released a new single from their upcoming EP as well. The name of the track is Waco Jesus. The new EP is called God Smiles Upon the Callous Cowboys. It will be out at the end of October. They are really doing what they can to move past their Dillinger Escape Plan comparisons, and they're doing it pretty well. I feel like they might be losing some of their identity trying to do that so quickly. It was really working for them on their last few releases, so I don't know why they would want to necessarily turn about face on that, but still super good, very angular, very ADD riddled metal, and I love it, and I'm definitely here for whatever sound they are willing to bring. Check out the new track Waco Jesus from Callous Cowboys. Then let's talk about Imminence, another one of those bands that I found very recently that is just doing solid heavy music. These guys have just released a new song called Heaven Shall Burn. This is Swedish melodic death metal, maybe? I really suck with subgenres sometimes. Imminence is just a thing unto themselves. They are Swedish. There is an element of death metal there, but there is a whole hell of a lot of melody as well. If you want to feel good about the future of heavy music, then absolutely I recommend listening to anything Imminence has put out, but specifically Heaven Shall Burn is a good place to start. And then I think this is a platform much more appropriate for releases from Tom McDonald. Has just given us a new track called Black and White, featuring Adam Calhoun and none other than Dax. Dax is just one of those great lyricists to come out in the last decade. He's probably been around longer than that. I've just only been aware of him for about 5-6 years. Either way, this is these guys at their peak. Calhoun kind of sounds a little bit much like Tom, and the lyrical content kind of fits in the same kind of realm as Tom as well. So I could probably do without the Calhoun verse. If it was just Tom and Dax, this would be a wholehearted recommend for some alternative hip hop, if you will. But either way, it's a solid track, solidly produced, because Tom and Dax are on it, and I would say go listen to it just because it's good music. Go check it out. That puts us into tours and festivals, which we're coming out the gate swinging for this subsection, and that is Trans-Siberian Orchestra has announced their tour dates for this year. There is a link down in the description that will take you to the tour dates. I was going to try and it starts here and goes here, but it's seriously there. So the way TSO works, let's break this down just slightly. The way TSO works is there is a core writing group of people. I used to know specifically who the musicians were, but I'm blanking on their names right now, and I apologize, but there's a core group of, I think it's 5 or so people who write the music and produce the records that are Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And then the live show goes out as multiple hired hands are brought in to also perform the music. So there are 2 separate companies that perform each day in different parts of the country so that they can cover as much ground. Because when you primarily make Christmas music, you gotta get as many dates in as possible. It makes sense. But yeah, follow the link, go check out the tour dates. Tickets should be on sale for some of them soon, I would imagine. I could not see ticket links for any of the dates when I was doing research for today's episode, but Trans-Siberian Orchestra is hitting the road, and if you haven't then you should absolutely go see them this year. From there, we do have one other tour announced. We have Carnifex. We talked about them in the new music section. Carnifex has announced Signs of the Swarm, To the Grave, and The Last 10 Seconds of Life will be supporting them on a trek coming out October 10th in Tucson, Arizona, running through November 11th in Los Angeles, California. There are quite a few dates on this, though probably not as much as I would want to see, because I don't think they're actually coming to my neck of the woods this year. But yeah, Carnifex and Signs of the Swarm, just those two alone are worth the ticket cost. So go check that out for sure if you have the ability to. And that is basically all we have. There is no regular news. So let's get into music suggestions for the week. This week's music suggestion is, once again, we've done this before, but once again, Mudvayne's L.D. 50, just because I just saw them and they continue to blow one's mind every time you see them live. These guys are so amazing. And this is the standard that they set for themselves. Pretty high standard. Chad recently came out and said that he doesn't like something about this record that I think is exactly why everybody loves this record. It's because it doesn't sound like a traditional metal record, because it's a very bottom heavy, because Ryan Martini is a presence to deal with, and I think that's really what set them apart. And that's the thing that Chad doesn't like about it, which I find funny. But either way, it is absolutely worth a listen to anybody who even casually has an appreciation for the metal genre. These guys are doing something very unique and beautiful, and go check out their first major label release, LD 50. Once again, this is just the music section. There is a much longer show called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, youtube.com/genuinenerdy. Go check out the entire show, or just subscribe here and do all of the things. Appreciate your faces, nerds. Before we go though, always remember that if it's genuinely nerdy, it's probably here.